Okay, today's lesson we're going to be taking a look at the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula is a very important lesson for Algebra 2 as it's something that we're going to be using frequently. You will also be continuing to use this in pre-calculus and in calculus if you go there. So first of all, the quadratic formula will solve any quadratic equation guaranteed. The second is if we have two answers. We've got our first equation where x would equal negative b plus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Our second equation has just a very minor difference where we'd have negative b minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. You might remember that b squared minus 4ac is the discriminant, which is what we've been working on the last couple of days. The second thing is you might see this summarized using a plus and a minus symbol, which tells us that we actually need to break it down into two separate steps. And of course this goes for any quadratic equation where we have ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Okay, so we're going to solve four equations using the quadratic formula. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm always going to start by writing down my formula. X is equal to negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find what each of these letters are in my equation. So I know I've got looking for ax squared, a would be 3. Looking for bx, so b would be negative 10. And c would be 3 here at the back. So when I go to plug those into my equation, I've got x is equal to a negative of negative 10. I'm going to use parentheses just like we did with the discriminant to plug everything in, plus and minus. Now I've got my discriminant, so I've got negative 10 squared minus 4 times a, which we said was 3, times c, which we also said was 3. All of this is over 2 times 3. Now we're just going to work out each part of this. So a negative of negative 10 would be positive 10. Plus and minus the square root of 64 over 6. Now this is the part where we really have to go and do our separate ways. So I'm going to start by going over here and I'm going to say x equals 10 plus the square root of 64 divided by 6. And we also have x equals 10 minus the square root of 64 divided by 6. Now I need to simplify each of these. So the first one, so square root of 64 is 8, so I've got 10 plus 8 divided by 6 would be 18 divided by 6, which is 3. That's my first answer. My second answer, I have x equals 10 minus 8 over 6 would be equal to 2 over 6, which tells me my second answer would be 1 over 3 when I'm finished. And overall, that's all we have to do. So once we get our discriminant, and we have the negative b simplified, and we have 2a simplified, we're going to do two steps. The first step, we're going to work with a plus sign in the middle. And the second step, we're going to work with a minus in the middle. And one thing that I want you to be very careful of is you always want to take care of these two values first, just due to the order of operations. So let's look at the second one. We've got negative x squared minus 2x plus 9 is equal to 0. So I'm going to start by copying down my formula. X is equal to negative b plus and minus the square root b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So I'm going to look for my numbers the same way we did earlier. So a is in front of x squared, so I don't have a number here, so that would tell me a is negative 1, because it is a negative sign right here. I'm going to look at my b value. My b value is in front of x, so b would be negative 2. C value has no x, and so I'm looking at my c value as being positive 9. Now I need to fill into my formula. So I've got negative of negative 2 plus and minus the square root. Got negative 2 squared minus 4 times negative 1 times 9 divided by 2 times negative 1. So a negative of negative 2 would be a positive 2, plus and minus my discriminant, which is 40, which tells me I have two real answers, and then over divided by negative 2. So just like right here, at this point, I need to do a split. I need to break this into two problems. The first, I'm going to have 2 plus square root of 40 divided by negative 2. My second problem would be 2 minus the square root of 40 divided by negative 2. So at this point, we need to break down the square root of 40. So I'm going to do that as scratch work. So square root of 40 breaks down to 4 and 10. So that gives me a pair of 2's, a 2 and a 5. So it breaks down to 2 square root of 10. So I've got 2 plus 2 square root of 10. And I just want to remind you of something. When we did radicals a couple weeks ago, when we had a compound fraction like this, we broke it down into two parts. And I will want you to do that here. So over here we've got 2 divided by negative 2 minus a square root of 40, which we just broke down as 2 square root of 10 divided by negative 2. So both of them have the same denominator. Now we just need to simplify. So I've got x equals 2 divided by negative 2 would be negative 1. And then plus 2 divided by negative 2 would be a negative 1 square root of 10. But here's the thing. I wouldn't want to say plus a negative. I would just want to say negative 1 minus 1 square root of 10 or the square root of 10. Over here, I'll have my second answer would be x would be equal to 2 divided by negative 2 would be negative 1. Now negative 2 square root of 10 divided by negative 2 would switch to be a positive 1 square root of 10. And what you're going to notice on a lot of these, whenever you have a square root problem, whenever you have a square root problem or a square root answer, your answers will be conjugates, where the only thing that will change will be this little sign here in the middle. You'll have 1 minus and 1 plus. Okay, that's a good way to check your work. Everything else should still be the same. Okay, question 3. We have x squared plus x plus 1 equals 0. So I'm going to start by copying down my formula. X equals negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So this one is really straightforward. I've got a is equal to 1. I've got b is equal to 1, and c is equal to 1. So now I'm going to just fill in my equation where I've got x equals negative 1 plus and minus the square root of 1 squared minus 4 times 1 times 1 all over 2 times 1. So now I just need to simplify this. So x is equal to a negative 1 would be negative 1 plus and minus my discriminant of negative 3 over 2 times 1 would be 2. So I have everything worked out from this first step, so now I need to switch to the plus and minus mode. So my first answer, I'm looking at negative 1 plus and minus the square root of negative 3 divided by 2. On this one I'm going to stick to the plus. My second route I'm going to have to take is negative 1 minus the square root of negative 3 divided by 2. So now I need to just simplify each of these. So I'm going to start negative 1 over 2 plus the square root of negative 3 over 2. Negative 1 over 2 minus the square root of negative 3 over 2. Now some of you might remember that whenever we square root a negative, we don't want to do that. And so I'm going to erase those negatives, and instead I need to put a letter I. So this is a point where the discriminant was a negative 3, which tells us that we should have two imaginary answers. which is exactly what we got in this case. Negative 1/2 plus square root of 3 over 2i, negative 1/2 minus square root of 3 over 2i. So last example, we have negative 3x squared plus 4x minus 4 equals 0. And I'm going to solve this using the quadratic equation. Start by writing down my formula. Negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So I've got a is equal to negative 3, b is equal to 4, c is equal to negative 4. Now I just need to fill into my equation. So I've got a negative 4 plus and minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times negative 4 times negative 3 all over 2 times negative 3. Now I just need to simplify it. So I've got negative 4, negative 6 at the bottom, plus and minus. My discriminant value would be negative 32. So I need to factor down my negative 32 because I'm going to have to split this into two separate parts now. So I've got negative 4 plus the square root of negative 32 over negative 6. And my second half of the equation, I would have negative 4 minus the square root of negative 32 over negative 6. So my 32, I'm going to choose 16 and 2, which breaks down to 4 and 4. So I've got a pair of 4's. So each one of these equations, I've got negative 4 plus 4 square root of 2. Now since this was a negative 32, I need to put a letter I in here. Remember, we don't want to put that underneath the square root, so we'd have 4i square root of 2 divided by negative 6. And we also have negative 4 minus 4i square root of 2 divided by negative 6. I'm going to separate it just like we did on the last problem, so negative 4 over 6, negative 6, plus 4i square root of 2 over negative 6. So 4 over 6 would reduce to 2 over 3, a positive because I have got a negative divided by a negative, plus 4 divided by negative 6 would make that a negative 2 over 3, and then I've still got that I square root of 2 at the top. And then over here on the right, when I separate it, I've got negative 4 over negative 6 minus 4i square root of 2 over negative 6. So that would simplify to 2 over 3 plus 2i square root of 2 over 3, which would give me my two separate answers. And again, this should only be used as a supplement and is not a replacement for paying attention in class. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. Thank you. Have a good night.